The relentless Tuscan sun beat down on my neck as I trudged through the deserted streets of Craco Sella. It was a ghost town, a skeletal city abandoned decades ago under the weight of a crushing, unexplained silence. August 10th, 1972. The clock on the town square, its hands forever frozen at 11:14, offered a chilling testament to the town's abrupt demise. Amelia Russo, an aspiring historian with a morbid fascination for the forgotten, was here to unravel its secrets. Craco Sella wasn't always a graveyard of memories. Black and white photographs I'd found in a dusty archive showed a vibrant town, nestled amidst rolling hills. Smiling faces peered out from windows adorned with vibrant flower boxes. Children chased each other down cobbled streets. Now those streets were choked with weeds, the windows' vacant eyes staring back at the relentless sun. The silence was the most unsettling part. No birdsong, no rustle of leaves in the wind, just an oppressive blanket of quiet that felt like a physical presence. It pressed against my ears, squeezing in with every ragged breath I took. The only sound was the crunch of my boots on the crumbling stones, a sound that echoed through the canyons of abandoned buildings, bouncing back distorted and unsettling. My initial apprehension grew with each step. I'd read the reports, the official explanation that blamed a series of deadly landslides for the town's evacuation. But something about the photos, about the forced smiles on the faces of the townsfolk, made me question the narrative. There was a hidden horror here, a story etched in the empty streets and the suffocating silence. As I ventured deeper, I stumbled upon a small, forgotten piazza. A chipped fountain stood in the center, its once joyful flow replaced with a stagnant puddle reflecting the harsh sunlight. Around it, the remnants of a bustling market lay scattered, overturned stalls, a rusty weighing scale, a lone, moldy peach clinging desperately to a chipped wooden crate. It was a snapshot of a life abruptly cut short, a scene straight out of a horror movie. Suddenly, a gust of wind whipped through the piazza, swirling dust devils amongst the debris. A scrap of paper danced in the wind, catching on a rusty nail protruding from a stall. With a jolt, I realized it was a photograph, faded and brittle. I carefully disentangled it, the image coming into focus. It was a group picture, a family, their faces etched with a tense joy. A young woman, her eyes wide and fearful, clutched a giggling child close. A man, his smile strained, stood behind them. But it was what they were looking at that sent a shiver down my spine. A single, blurry figure stood at the edge of the frame, its outline distorted, its face obscured by darkness. Panic clawed at my throat. This wasn't on any of the historical records. Who was this unseen person lurking in the background? Was it just a trick of the faded photograph? Or was there a presence here I hadn't anticipated? My unease grew as the sun began its descent, casting long, skeletal shadows across the town. I knew I should turn back, find shelter before nightfall. But a strange compulsion kept me rooted to the spot. A feeling, a whisper almost too faint to hear, drew me onward, deeper into the maze of abandoned buildings. The once proud houses loomed over me, their windows like hollow sockets staring into the gathering gloom. Cracked paint peeled from the walls, revealing layers of faded dreams and forgotten lives. It felt like the town itself was holding its breath, waiting for something. My heart hammered against my ribs as I reached the town's outskirts. Here, a single house stood defiant, its windows boarded shut unlike the others. A sense of foreboding hung heavy in the air, a feeling like a hand reaching from the shadows to clutch at me. Driven by an unknown force, I reached for the rusty doorknob. It yielded with a sickening scrape, the rusted hinges groaning in protest. Stepping inside was like entering a tomb. Dust swirled in the shafts of fading light that pierced through the boarded windows. Cobwebs draped the decaying furniture like spectral shrouds. A stale, suffocating odor filled the air, a mix of damp earth and something else, something far more sinister. As I explored, my flashlight beam danced across peeling wallpaper, revealing faded newspaper clippings. They all spoke of the same event, a series of strange occurrences that plagued the town in the weeks leading up to the supposed landslide. Unidentified lights in the night sky, whispers carried on the wind. The newspaper clippings, brittle and yellowed with age, seemed to vibrate with an unseen energy. A cold sweat slicked my skin as I read one in particular, its headline screaming, "Uomo Ombra avvistado." Shadow man sighted. The accompanying article detailed the chilling account of a young boy who claimed to have seen a shadowy figure lurking at the edge of town, its form shifting and insubstantial. A sudden crash from upstairs sent my heart into overdrive. I spun around, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. Silence. Perhaps it was just the settling of the old house, a product of my overactive imagination. But the feeling of being watched intensified, a prickling sensation at the base of my neck. Driven by a morbid curiosity, I carefully made my way up the creaking wooden stairs. Each step sent a jolt of fear through me, the echoing sound amplifying the oppressive silence of the house. The upper floor was a mirror image of the one below, shrouded in dust and darkness. As I reached the landing, a draft of cold air snaked around my ankles, extinguishing my flashlight. Panic surged through me, the darkness closing in like a suffocating shroud. Fumbling in my bag, I found a lighter and flicked it on, its weak flame casting an eerie glow on the dusty surroundings. There, in the far corner of the room, a shape shifted in the shadows. It was tall and slender, its form obscured by the darkness. A primal scream lodged itself in my throat, but before I could utter a sound, the figure spoke. Its voice was a raspy whisper, barely audible above the creaking of the house. "Non dovresti essere qui," it rasped. "You shouldn't be here." The words sent a shiver down my spine, the broken Italian chillingly familiar. Terror threatened to consume me, but a spark of defiance ignited within me. "Ci sei?" I stammered. "Who are you?" The figure remained motionless, its form flickering at the edges like a dying flame. Then, with a sigh that seemed to echo through the ages, it stepped into the sliver of light cast by the lighter. My breath hitched in my throat. The figure was a man, or what remained of one. His clothes were tattered rags, his skin a grayish white, stretched taut over his skeletal frame. His eyes, two hollow pits in his skull, seemed to burn with an unnatural intelligence. "Sono il guardiano," he rasped. "I am the guardian." "Colui che veglia su Craco Sella," he continued. "The one who watches over Craco Sella." The weight of his words settled on me like a lead blanket. He wasn't a figment of my imagination, nor a figment of the past. He was something else entirely, a being bound to this town, forever trapped within its decaying husk. A wave of questions flooded my mind, but before I could voice them, the guardian spoke again. "La verità non è ciò che cerchi," he warned. "The truth is not what you seek. Lascia Craco Sella in pace," he pleaded. "Leave Craco Sella in peace." His words resonated with a strange power, a sense of finality that left me breathless. I knew then that I couldn't stay, not in this house, not in this town. The secrets of Craco Sella were a burden I wasn't meant to bear. With a newfound resolve, I stumbled back down the stairs, the guardian's chilling words echoing in my ears. As I fumbled with the rusty doorknob, the house seemed to sigh in relief. Pushing open the door, I stepped back out into the twilight, the oppressive silence of the town no longer as unsettling. The walk back seemed shorter, fueled by a desperate need to escape. Reaching the edge of town, I cast one last glance back at the hulking silhouette of the abandoned house. A single flicker of light, faint and fleeting, caught my eye in an upstairs window. The guardian, watching over his silent domain. Back in the safety of my hotel room, the events of the day replayed in my mind like a horrifying nightmare. The photograph, the newspaper clippings, the chilling encounter with the guardian, all pieces of a puzzle I could barely comprehend. But one thing was certain. Craco Sella held a secret far more terrifying than any landslide. A secret guarded by a spectral entity, a reminder that some wounds on the earth never truly heal, and some towns are better left undisturbed. The next morning I left Craco Sella behind, the weight of its secrets a heavy burden on my shoulders. The official narrative of a landslide might hold some truth, but it felt like a flimsy curtain draped over a gaping abyss. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd brushed against something ancient and malevolent, something that thrived in the shadows and the silence. Back in my city, the normalcy of life felt surreal. Traffic horns, bustling crowds, construction noises, all the sounds I used to find irritating now felt like a comforting symphony. Yet every now and then, a stray thought of the whispering guardian would send a shiver down my spine. Weeks turned into months, and the unsettling experience at Craco Sella faded into the periphery of my life. I focused on my research, finding solace in the familiar world of historical records and dusty archives. But one day, while sifting through a stack of old photographs, my blood ran cold. It was another picture from Craco Sella, one I hadn't seen before. A group of tourists smiling brightly on a sunny day. And in the background, almost obscured by the shadow of a building, stood the figure I would never forget. The guardian, his hollow eyes staring directly into the camera. My breath caught in my throat. The photograph was dated 2023. Craco Sella was supposed to be an empty shell, devoid of life. But the guardian was there, a silent sentinel, a chilling reminder that the secrets of the town remained buried, waiting for another unwary soul to stumble upon them. The weight of this realization settled on me like a shroud. Perhaps the truth wasn't meant to be found. Perhaps some mysteries are best left undisturbed. But the image of the guardian, forever trapped in his spectral vigil, burned into my mind. A constant reminder of the darkness that lurks beneath the surface of our seemingly ordinary world. And though I may never return to Craco Sella, a part of me will forever remain entangled in the whispers of that abandoned town.